Hello, and welcome to Bore Me to Bed, your gentle landing after a long day. Tonight, we invite you to unwind with a topic that truly captures the art of slowing down. You've probably heard the phrase, like watching grass grow, a little joke we tell about things that feel impossibly slow or boring. But maybe that's exactly what we need. After all, when your mind has been racing all day, something quietly uneventful can feel like a deep exhale. In the right setting, boredom isn't a nuisance. It's a kind of relief. It softens the edges of thought. It invites you to let go of urgency, expectation, and distraction. Watching grass grow may be the punchline to a joke, but here, in this quiet, sleepy corner of the world, it's a promise that nothing is expected of you and time can pass gently. So let's do exactly that. Let's spend some time with the grass, watching it grow slowly and calmly as the rest of the world drifts away. This will be a journey into the utterly ordinary, a simple exploration of green blades and gentle growth. In our story for tonight, nothing much will happen, and that's the beauty of it. We will wander through the life of a humble grass plant, from the very beginning of its life as a tiny seed, through its sprouting and stretching and all the way to its quiet maturity, and beyond. Take a deep breath and settle in. You might imagine yourself lying in a quiet meadow, or perhaps resting on a comfy chair in your backyard, gazing at a patch of lawn. The air is still and mild. Maybe the sun is low in the sky, casting long golden rays across the ground. You notice a gentle green carpet of grass in front of you, stretching out peacefully. Each blade stands or bends quietly, and if you focus very closely, closer than anyone normally would, you can almost see the subtle changes as they happen. Time seems to slow down here. The phrase, watching grass grow, takes on a new, soothing charm. Let's begin at the very start of this grassy story, with a single, tiny seed. Picture a grass seed, perhaps nestled just beneath the surface of the soil. Small and unassuming, maybe shaped like a slender oval or a little grain, dry and beige in colour. It rests in the cool darkness under a thin layer of earth. Perhaps this particular seed fell to the ground at the end of last summer and lay dormant through the cold months, patiently biding its time until the warmth of spring and the touch of moisture signalled that it was time to wake. For a long while, it remained still, as if asleep. Days and nights pass above while the seed lies quietly in its bed of soil. There might be faint rumblings when someone walks overhead, or the gentle drumming of rain soaking the ground. But the seed just waits in the dark, unhurried and unaware of the world outside. In its simplicity, it holds everything it needs to begin a new life. Only the right moment is needed to spark that life. When that moment comes, it's triggered by something as simple as water. Picture an early spring rain shower, or someone gently watering the ground from a can, the water seeping down to where our little seed lies. The seed begins to drink. Drop by drop, it absorbs the moisture, and something awakens inside. It also helps if the soil is warm enough, a gentle warmth that signals it's spring, and if there's air in the soil, for the seed needs to breathe just a little oxygen as it awakens. Once all these conditions are met, the seed's slumber truly ends. The seed's coat softens, the dryness gives way to dampness. Within the seed, a quiet stirring begins, a slow unfurling of potential. Inside that tiny seed is a miniature plant waiting to emerge, a tiny embryo that has been dormant, tucked in with a small store of food. As the water penetrates the seed, the embryo wakes up from its slumber. Very slowly, chemical reactions begin. The stored nutrients inside the seed, a bit of starch, some oils, start to break down into sugars and energy that the little embryo can use. It is as though breakfast is being served in bed for this tiny plant to be. It doesn't have to reach out for food just yet. It's all packed right there within the seed. A thoughtful little provision for the journey of growth about to begin. Now, ever so gradually, the seed swells with moisture and life. If you were to imagine it up close, you might see the slender shape of the seed plump up slightly as it takes in water. It's subtle, nothing dramatic, just a quiet sign that germination has begun. In the darkness underground, the first tiny root begins to push its way out of the seed coat. This root, called the radicle, is delicate and pale. It nudges into the surrounding soil, sensing in a way its direction. Downwards it goes, because even without eyes or ears, the little grass seedling knows to seek the earth's embrace below. Gravity gently guides it, and the root follows, growing into the soil. The soil around the seed is soft from the recent rain. Each grain of sand or particle of dirt offers just a bit of resistance, but the new root finds the spaces in between. Slowly, cell by cell, the root extends. It doesn't need to hurry. Moisture is all around in the soil now, and the root is drawn to it. This is the grass's first tiny foothold in the world, anchoring itself. As it grows, microscopic root hairs sprout from the sides of this young root, reaching out like little fingers to touch more of the soil. These root hairs greatly increase the root's surface area, allowing the plant to drink more water and to start absorbing nutrients dissolved in that water, minerals that the grass will use to build its tissues as it grows. While the primary root delves downward, another part of the seedling is also on the move, the shoot. At the same time the radicle is reaching into the earth, a small shoot is preparing to journey upward. This shoot is the beginning of what will become the grass's first leaf and stem, but emerging into the open air is a delicate task. To protect the tender new shoot on its upward journey, many grass seeds have a special adaptation, a little protective sheath that covers the baby shoot as it pushes through soil. It's called a coleoptile, but you don't need to remember the term. Just picture a tiny pointed cap or sleeve at the tip of the new shoot, tougher than the soft leaf within it, nudging through the dirt much like a chick uses an eggshell for protection as it pecks its way out. Under this protective tip, the shoot extends upward, driven by the growth of cells that elongate one by one. It is a slow-motion ascent. Imagine, beneath the surface, a pale sprout creeping steadily toward daylight. Each passing hour it grows a fraction of a millimetre, imperceptibly slowly by our standards, but persistently. It senses the direction of warmth and the pull of light above, perhaps through subtle differences in temperature or some inner guidance written in its genes, and it moves accordingly. Above ground, days continue to pass quietly. The sun rises and sets a few times while all this is happening out of sight. The world above still shows no sign of the new grass, not yet, but under the soil, life is underway, a careful preparation before the grand entrance into the world. There comes a morning when things change. The tip of that protective sheath finally finds its way to open air. It might be a tranquil early morning when dew has settled on the surface of the soil, or a calm afternoon under gentle sunshine. At first, a tiny point of green breaks through the ground, so small you might miss it if you weren't looking very closely. The grass seedling's first emergence is a quiet hello to the world. It doesn't burst out dramatically, it simply appears 1 millimetre, then another, rising from brown earth into the light. As the protective sheath of the shoot feels the open air and the tickle of light, it has done its job. Now the inner shoot can start to unfurl. The grass's first true leaf is on its way. The sheath itself stops growing taller once it's in the light, and instead the tender green within begins to push through. Soon a slender blade of grass, fresh and new, slips out from that little sheath and begins to open towards the sky. It's a newborn grass leaf, soft and pale green at first, having never seen the sun before. Imagine leaning in very close to this tiny new blade of grass. Perhaps it's no more than an inch tall as it starts out. The air around it is still, and the blade barely moves except for a gentle tremble if a breeze happens to find it. In this moment, the grass is making one of its first connections to the wider world. It meets the sunlight. Sunlight bathes the little leaf, and inside, something almost magical is happening. The leaf contains chlorophyll, a green pigment that captures light. Now that the leaf is out in the open, those chlorophyll molecules awaken. The sunlight pours gently over the tiny blade, and the grass begins to do what all green plants do. It starts photosynthesis. On the surface, it's just a faint green sprout standing still. But within that blade, cells are coming alive with activity. The grass is breathing in a way, taking in carbon dioxide from the air through microscopic openings in its leaf. At the same time, water that the roots have been absorbing from the damp soil travels up through the shoot to reach the leaf. In a quiet, invisible chemical dance, the energy from the sunlight, the carbon dioxide from the air, and the water from the earth all converge inside the leaf's cells. With the chlorophyll as the facilitator, these simple ingredients are transformed. The result is the creation of sugars, tiny, energy-rich molecules that will feed the grass as it continues to grow. And as a gentle byproduct of this process, the grass releases a bit of oxygen back into the air, a quiet exhale that will mix into the atmosphere. Take a moment to appreciate this. A fragile blade of grass, only recently a sleeping seed, is now performing one of the most fundamental and life-giving processes on Earth. It's doing it without any fanfare, in total silence, and at a minuscule scale. Yet this little plant is now self-sufficient, no longer relying solely on the seed's stored food. It stands on its own, making its living from sunlight, air, and soil. It lives on little more than light, water, and a handful of soil, showing how simply and naturally life can sustain itself when conditions are right. This transformation is gentle and constant. With each ray of sunshine that touches the leaf, the grass gathers a little more energy, and with each sip of water from its roots, it builds more of its structure. The grass seedling is still tiny, but it is no longer as fragile as it was moments ago. It has a root anchoring it in the ground and drawing up water. It has a leaf in the light, feeding it with sugars. The connection between earth and sky is established through this unassuming little life. In the next hours and days, this seedling will continue its gradual growth. Now that it's above ground, things might seem a bit more dynamic compared to the subterranean germination stage, but only just a bit. After all, grass grows at its own leisurely pace. If you were to sit by and truly watch, you would still hardly notice a change from minute to minute. But over the span of a day or two, if you marked its height, you might see that the tiny blade has gotten a little longer, a little greener, standing just a touch taller than before. Our new grass plant continues to draw upon the soil and the sun. Its initial root, that first radicle, is still working below, but already the plant is preparing more. Soon, slender side roots will branch out, forming a small network under the soil. These are often called adventitious roots, or secondary roots, essentially new roots that grow from the base of the grass shoot, now forming what will be the crown of the plant, rather than from the seed itself. This growing root network fans out in the soil, seeking water and nutrients in all directions like tiny explorers in the dark. If there are any beneficial nutrients near, a bit of nitrogen from decayed leaves, a trace of minerals from the soil, the roots will find and absorb them. Bit by bit, the grass plant strengthens its footing, securing itself more firmly in its little spot of earth. Indeed, beneath the surface there is almost as much going on as above. The primary root that first ventured out has been joined by many others, forming a fibrous tangle threading through the soil. These roots weave around tiny clumps of earth, anchoring firmly and sipping water from every available morsel of dampness. If we could peer into the soil now, we'd see a miniature world of roots spreading like delicate filigree. Here and there, microscopic life stirs too, friendly bacteria coating the roots, and fine fungal threads reaching out to collaborate with the grass in exchange of nutrients. It's a hidden, silent network that supports the grass's life above, a kind of mirror to the green shoots, but in shades of brown and white beneath our feet. Now, above the ground, under the open sky, our little grass plant greets its new world with quiet perseverance. Each day it soaks up more sunlight and drinks a little more water through its roots. The single blade that emerged starts to lengthen. The cells at its base, down near the soil, continue to divide and expand, slowly pushing the blade upward. You might think a plant grows from the tip, but grass is a bit different. It extends from the base of its leaves near the ground, which is one of its secret strategies for survival. This way, even if the tip is nibbled off or cut, the grass can keep on growing from below. So the little blade grows taller and taller almost imperceptibly. If you were to mark its height in the morning and then check again at night, you might notice a change, perhaps a few millimeters of new growth. But it happens so gradually that unless you measure it, you'd never catch it in the act. The grass simply stands and quietly stretches, cell by cell, drawing energy from that sugar it makes and building itself up. With each hour of daylight, more photosynthesis happens in that slender green leaf. The grass uses some of that sugar immediately to grow and quietly stores the rest in its roots and lower stem, like a little savings account of energy. Later, when night falls or if the grass is trimmed or faces a dry spell, it can draw on these stored reserves to carry itself through. And when evening comes and the light fades, the grass doesn't stop living. It simply slows down the production of food and uses what it has stored. In the darkness it might even respire gently, a soft mirror to our own slow breathing as we sleep. Our single grass plant is still very small, but it's not alone in this quiet world. Perhaps this grass was planted as part of a new lawn, scattered along with hundreds of other little seeds in the soil. Or maybe it's one of many wild seeds naturally spread in a meadow. All around it, other grass seedlings might be making their own debuts, poking up through the soil like tiny emerald pins in a cushion of earth. Over a few days and weeks, what was once bare ground transforms subtly into a faint green fuzz. At first, you see just a sparse sprinkling of blades here and there, each one tiny and alone, but give it a bit more time. The blades multiply and grow taller, and soon they begin to fill in the gaps. The soil, once brown and exposed, now starts to disappear under a veil of new green life. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. Nothing in this story does. It might take several weeks for a proper little lawn to cover the ground, or for a meadow's grasses to fully awaken in spring. But watching it gradually expand is like watching the slow turning of a season itself. Each day, a touch more green. Each day the blades reach a bit further toward the sky and extend their roots a bit further below. The pace is soothing in its consistency. Let's focus in again on our patch of grass. Morning arrives gently. Imagine the early dawn light creeping in, the sky tinged with pale pink and blue. The first rays of the sun peek over the horizon and touch the grass tips with a gentle gold. In that instant, each dewdrop glitters briefly, and the green of the blades seems to awaken and brighten. The night has left droplets of dew scattered across the grass blades. Each drop of dew is like a tiny crystal globe, catching the first light of day. Some droplets gather at the tips of the grass blades, making them bow ever so slightly under the weight. Others cling along the sides, beading the grass with liquid pearls. In the cool of dawn, the world is quiet. If you listen, you might hear a bird starting to sing somewhere far off, or the distant dripping of water from leaves. Perhaps a small bird like a robin hops across the dewy lawn, pausing now and then to listen or peck at the ground for a hidden grub. Its light presence causes the blades to barely quiver. Later, that same bird might return to pluck a dry blade of grass to line its nest, tucking a piece of our humble lawn into a cozy new home in a nearby tree. Soon it flutters away, and the grass springs back, unperturbed and continuing its quiet morning. But the grass itself is silent, content simply to be. As the sun rises a little higher, its rays touch the dew-laden grass. On a carefully tended lawn, you might even hear the faint click and hiss of automatic sprinklers coming to life at daybreak. They cast arcs of water across the grass, each droplet catching the morning light in a tiny spectrum. For a brief time, it's as if rain is falling in slow motion, a manufactured shower that patters gently on the lawn. The grass, of course, accepts this water just the same, its roots soaking up the welcome moisture. Gradually those droplets begin to evaporate, the water returning to the air as a soft mist. Perhaps a tiny droplet runs down a blade before vanishing, briefly quenching the root below as it trickles into the soil. With the coming of morning, the grass awakens in its own way. Its leaves have plenty of moisture from the dew, and perhaps that sprinkler's shower, and now the sunshine provides the energy to start photosynthesizing again after the relative quiet of the night. It's as if the grass takes a quiet breath with the dawn, inhaling sunlight and the carbon dioxide that has built up a bit in the still night air, and exhaling oxygen and a touch of water vapor. Through the morning, the grass steadily continues its work of growing. The environment around it might start to stir. The air warms, a gentle breeze may drift by, perhaps carrying the scent of fresh morning or the distant fragrance of flowers. The grass responds in its subtle way. Each blade might sway just slightly with the breeze. Unlike a tree with obvious rustling leaves, a short carpet of grass moves more as a collective, with a soft shivering motion when the wind caresses it. Occasionally, a lone cloud meanders across the sky, giving the grass a short respite from the direct sun. In that moment of dappled light, the air cools ever so slightly around the leaves. Then the cloud moves on and the full sunshine returns, and the grass continues its gentle work as if nothing happened. Every so often a stronger gust of wind rushes through, and the grass responds in unison. A ripple passes over the lawn, a visible wave of bending blades that rolls across the green expanse. Then, as the gust settles, each blade gently springs upright again, or perhaps leans at a new slight angle, as if nothing happened. If the air is very calm, the blades stand nearly motionless like little green soldiers at ease, flexible but poised. The sun climbs towards noon. The grass now basks in full daylight. The dew is long gone, soaked into the soil or lifted into the air, but the grass still has water to drink because its roots continuously supply it from deeper down. Beneath the surface, the soil holds moisture from last night's dew and earlier rains. Our grass plant's roots, and those of its neighbours, are busy absorbing that water. Along with the water come nutrients dissolved within, tiny bits of nitrogen, perhaps from organic matter in the soil, or maybe from fertiliser someone spread on the lawn. Specks of phosphorus that help the grass build its DNA and energy stores, and potassium that helps it regulate its quiet cellular activities. These nutrients are invisible to us, but to the grass they are like vitamins, essential for healthy growth. As the roots pull them in, the grass incorporates these elements into its being, building blocks for new cells, new leaves, and a stronger plant. We might not think of a blade of grass as having a complex anatomy, but even this simple plant has its parts. At the base, near the ground, is a little zone from which everything arises. This is often called the crown of the grass plant. In our imaginations, we can picture it as a tiny, white growing point just above the roots and just below the green leaves. From this crown, new leaves will sprout over time and roots will continue to emerge below. The crown stays low to the earth, hidden just at the soil surface or slightly below, protecting itself from the world above. Because of this, grass can endure hardships. If the top is bitten off by a grazing deer or trimmed by a lawnmower, the crown often remains safe near the ground, ready to grow again. And indeed, as days pass, our little grass plant is preparing to become not just a single blade, but a small family of blades. The first leaf that emerged stands tall, though tall might still mean just a few inches at this point. Soon, a second leaf begins to grow from the same young plant. It might start as a tiny nub at the base, slowly lengthening out alongside the first leaf. This is the grass's way of becoming fuller and bushier. In a lawn, this process is what helps one grass plant become a tuft that can cover more ground. These new shoots are sometimes called tillers, though we need not worry about the term. What matters is that our single blade is not alone anymore. It has siblings now, growing from the same root system. Each new leaf goes through the same delicate process of emerging small, then unfurling and greening up in the sun. Over time, a once thin showing of grass becomes dense and soft underfoot as more leaves join in. Think of a grassy area you might know, perhaps a patch in a park or your own yard. It likely didn't appear fully lush overnight. It started with those sparse shoots and slowly filled in. Now maybe, as our narration continues, you can envision that initially thin layer of grass thickening. After a few weeks, the ground that once looked patchy is now mostly green. Little gaps between grass clumps have narrowed. If you run a hand gently over it, you'd feel a bit of resistance, a slight spring, as dozens of blades press back. What was once fragile is a touch more resilient now. Our grass plant has grown significantly from that tiny seed we began with. It might now stand several inches tall if left untrimmed, with multiple slender leaves fanning out. The roots below have also multiplied, forming a fibrous weave that grips the soil. This not only helps the grass stay anchored when the wind blows or if something brushes against it, but it also helps the soil itself stay in place. A good cover of grass can prevent soil from washing away in a rain thanks to those interlocking roots. In our quiet story, perhaps a gentle rain does arrive. Picture an afternoon where clouds gradually roll in. The bright light that was once strong becomes soft and grey. The temperature cools slightly and the breeze picks up just a little, enough to make the grown grass blades stir and dance together ever so quietly. Then a patter. The sound of raindrops begins. The grass blades feel the first sprinkles, a drop here, a drop there. Soon, a mild shower sets in. The grass, which only this morning held dew, now gets a fresh bath from the sky. Water washes over the leaves, cleaning off any dust. The drops collect and slide down to the soil, soaking the ground around the roots. The thirsty roots happily drink up the new moisture. The air smells fresh, that earthy sweet scent that comes with rain on soil, some call it petrichor. It's a scent that often brings a sense of calm. The grass, of course, knows nothing of names or scents, but it benefits all the same. The rain delivers more water and with it more nutrients carried from the environment. As quickly as it came, the rain passes. the clouds lighten and begin to part, revealing rays of sunlight that pierce through and illuminate the freshly wet landscape. Droplets of rain now cling to the grass just like the morning dew did, except these might be larger, making the grass blades lean a bit more from the weight. Time moves on, and the sun returns fully, gently drying the blades. The water that remains in the soil is plentiful. Our grass can now continue its slow growth with renewed vigour, having been well watered, and so the cycle continues. Day and night, sunshine and dew, occasional rain. Day after day, this gentle pattern continues. Every morning brings a familiar dew and soft light. Every afternoon the sun coaxes the grass to grow a little more. Every evening the world quiets and the grass settles under the sky. The differences from one day to the next are almost imperceptible, yet over time they add up. A passerby who hadn't seen the grass in a while would notice it has grown greener and taller, though to us, watching it each day, the change was so smooth and subtle that it felt as if nothing changed at all from moment to moment. This is how grass grows, in countless tiny increments, in a calm and steady progression that gently blurs the distinction between one day and the next. Our grass plant and its neighbours live through these cycles in a calm rhythm. There might be warmer days when the sun is strong and the soil begins to dry at the surface. The grass responds by extending its roots a bit deeper if it can, finding moisture that lies further down. On hot afternoons, if the grass loses water from its leaves faster than it can pull it up from the roots, it might begin to wilt slightly. The blades can droop or roll inward a little to conserve water. But when evening comes and cools the air, often the grass recovers, perking up as it balances its moisture again. For now, in our narrative, let's imagine conditions are gentle and kind. Plenty of mild sunshine, occasional cooling showers, and nights just cool enough to draw dew, but not so cold as to harm our tender grass. Under such benevolent conditions, the grass thrives. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily. An observer checking on it week by week would see clear progress. The grass getting taller, the colour possibly deepening to a richer green as it matures and takes in nutrients. Perhaps the blades, once very fine and delicate, become a bit broader and sturdier in texture. Running your fingers over them, you might feel the smoothness of each blade and the slightly raspy edges. Some grasses have very fine teeth along their margins, too small to see but giving a faint roughness to the touch. If you press your palm flat against the turf, it's cool from the water held within the plants and the shade they cast on the soil. In the wide world beyond our quiet patch, grass has many forms and faces, but they all share this fundamental pattern of growth. Root down, shoot up, soak in sun, drink water, grow slowly, repeat. From the neatly trimmed lawns in front of homes to wild prairie fields dancing with long grass in the summer wind, every grass blade is built on this same simple life cycle and structure. For now, we remain with our modest patch, savouring the small details of each moment. One day, as part of the natural course, the grass will reach a certain height where something will happen. Either nature or humans will intervene, or the grass itself will proceed to a new stage. We will get to that soon enough. But there's no rush here. For the time being, picture a lazy afternoon where nothing is expected of the grass except to continue being green and growing ever so slowly. The sun begins to descend in the sky once more, casting golden light over the little meadow or lawn. The shadows of the blades grow longer on the ground. If you lie down among the grass and look at it at eye level, you see a tiny forest of green stalks, with sunlight glowing through them. You might see the occasional glimmer of a spider's silk thread strung between blades, catching the light. Or maybe a ladybug makes an appearance, crawling up a blade methodically and then taking flight, leaving the grass to stand quietly again. These tiny happenings might go unnoticed unless one is very still and very patient, just like the growth of the grass itself. Evening comes, the warmth of the day gently retreats. Perhaps a soft chirping of crickets begins in the distance as the sky turns from blue to a gentle purple and then to dusky grey. Now and then, a gentle rustle might signal a visitor, perhaps a small rabbit venturing out to nibble on the grass in the twilight. It moves quietly, pausing to chew tender shoots near the edge of the lawn. The grass bends under its little paws and then springs back when the rabbit moves on, leaving scarcely a sign of the nighttime meal. The grass, of course, doesn't have a bedtime. It remains where it is, as always. But in the cooler evening air, the rush of photosynthesis eases off. The grass transitions into a sort of maintenance mode. It continues to respire, that is, it continues to gently take in oxygen and give off carbon dioxide. Plants do this all the time, but during the day, photosynthesis masks it by consuming carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. At night, without sunlight, the balance shifts and the grass is like any other living thing, breathing in the dark, using the stored energy it made during the day to keep its cells alive and its growth slowly advancing. If the night is humid and cool, dew may form again towards the morning. For now, the grass might feel the settling of evening moisture across its leaves as the temperature drops. Each blade cools, and moisture from the air condenses into tiny droplets once more. It's a gentle drink from the air itself, a small bonus for the plant while it waits for the next sunrise. And so, under the quiet blanket of night, the grass grows on, almost imperceptibly in little fits and starts as conditions allow. In these hours of stillness, if you listen with your imagination, perhaps you can almost hear the silence of the grass. It's the silence of life in slow motion, a gentle, ongoing creation that makes no sound at all. Slowly, steadily, softly, silently, the grass grows. The phrase, "as quiet as grass growing," isn't a common saying, but in this moment you feel like it could be. By the time dawn peaks again, the grass will have added perhaps another bit of length to its form, and when daylight returns, the cycle will continue anew. Dew lifting, sun warming, leaves soaking in light, roots sipping water. The grass carrying on, doing the only thing it knows how to do, living and growing, quietly and steadily. Our grass has lived a peaceful life so far, but in many places grass doesn't just grow unchecked forever. Here in our imagined patch, there comes a day when a new experience occurs for the grass. It has grown several inches high by now, tall enough that it's soft and shaggy. Perhaps it's early summer and the grass is lush and green. Now, consider that this might be a patch in someone's yard. Eventually, the caretaker of the lawn decides it's time to trim it. In the gentle hush of an afternoon, there is a change in the routine. The ground begins to feel faint vibrations. A distant hum grows steadily louder. A lawnmower is rolling across the yard, cutting the grass to a neat height. We won't dwell on the noise or commotion. It passes quickly, like a brief disruptive cloud across a sunny sky. In moments, the deed is done. The grass has been mowed. Where moments ago the blade stood perhaps 4 or 5 inches high, a small forest to any insect that wandered through, now they have been shorn to maybe half that height or less. The tops of the blades are gone, and what's left are stubbier, even-cut leaves. The lawn has a tidy, even look, like a haircut fresh from the barber. For the grass, this is a significant event, albeit one it is well adapted to handle. Each blade that was sliced short now has an open tip, a raw end where it was cut. These cut ends will gradually dry out and seal off over the next day or so, turning a pale brown at the very tips. If you've ever looked closely at grass after mowing, you might notice those faint golden or whitish edges at the top of the blades. That's the evidence of the cut, the grass cauterizing its tiny wounds, so to speak, and protecting itself from disease. In the immediate aftermath of mowing, the grass essentially takes a little breath and then carries on. The disturbance is over quickly, and soon the quiet returns. The scent of fresh-cut grass hangs in the warm air, that sweet green perfume that many find nostalgic and calming. Interestingly, that smell is the grass's own chemical response to being cut, a mix of compounds it releases. To us, it's the quintessential fragrance of summer. To the grass, it's just part of the process of being trimmed and starting anew. The tiny pieces of cut grass that now lie scattered will dry out under the sun. They'll turn pale and papery, and over days they'll crumble back into the earth. Those remains enrich the soil slightly, returning a bit of nourishment to the ground that the living grass can later reabsorb. Nothing is wasted. Even in being trimmed, the grass contributes to the cycle of life, feeding itself and its neighbours in the lawn in due time. Now stripped of a portion of its leaves, the grass cannot catch as much sunlight until it regrows. But remember how grass grows, from the base. Those growth points near the soil were untouched by the mower's blades, at least not if the mower was set properly and not scalping too low. And so, almost immediately the grass begins to renew itself. Using the energy stored in its roots and the remaining parts of its leaves, it puts out new growth. The crown of the plant, that resilient little hub of life, now kicks into high gear to replace what was lost. In the days following the mowing, if we could peer very closely, we'd see new leaf buds emerging from that crown. Each bud will slowly extend upward as a fresh blade. The grass is not discouraged. If anything, this trimming triggers it to grow a bit more vigorously for a short while, as if answering the challenge of the cut. Have you ever noticed how a lawn often looks especially green and vibrant a few days after it's been mowed? Part of that is because the grass often responds by thickening up, producing new shoots. Our little grass plant does exactly that. It may branch a bit more at the base, sending up an extra leaf or two. Over time, repeated mowing can actually make the grass more dense. Instead of one plant growing tall and lonely, it grows outward with new shoots, covering the ground like a plush carpet. This is one reason lawns, which are mowed regularly, often become thicker and more uniform over the seasons. Each cut encourages the grass to put out more growth at its base, which fills in gaps and creates a smooth, cushioned expanse of green. Now imagine our grass patch not just as a single plant, but as a community of many grass plants, all experiencing this together. The mower swept over all of them, and now all of them are collectively coming back, like a chorus of quiet voices resuming their song after a brief silence. Day by day after the trim, the lawn regains its height. The sun continues to shine, and the grass continues to photosynthesize with whatever leaf surface it has left, gradually expanding that surface by growing taller again. The roots still draw up water and nutrients, fueling this comeback. If the weather remains kind, with occasional watering or rain to keep the soil moist, the grass recovers in short order. Within a week or so, the lawn is green, soft, and a couple of inches taller once more, ready for the cycle to possibly repeat when it gets too long again for human preferences. This interplay between growth and cutting is a dance that has been going on for as long as grasses and grazing animals have coexisted, and more recently, between grasses and humans with our lawn tools. Long before mowers, nature had its own trimmers, herbivores. Picture a serene meadow with wild grasses, and along comes a deer, or perhaps a herd of wild horses or bison in the Great Plains long ago. These animals wander through, nibbling or tearing off mouthfuls of grass. To the grass, being chewed off by an animal isn't so different from being cut by a mower blade. In an instant, the tender top of a grass blade is gone, eaten. The animal moves on, and what's left is a shorter blade of grass with the same resilience to grow back. The grazing might be even gentler in some cases than a mower, a cow's teeth cutting the grass with a wet crunch, followed by a peaceful chewing and an ambling gait onward. The grass left behind might sway a bit from the disturbance but remains rooted. Soon, under the next sun, it too will begin to replace what was eaten, drawing from its base just as our lawn did after mowing. Grasses evolved under conditions of regular disturbance. Many grassy ecosystems like savannas and prairies experience not just grazing but also periodic fires and seasonal droughts. Through all that, the grasses that survived and thrived were those that could regrow from their base and from their roots. If a fire swept through and burned the leaves, the grass's crown, being at or below the soil surface, often survived the heat, and the roots remained alive beneath the ash. With the next rain, new green shoots would miraculously emerge from the seemingly dead ground. Likewise, with grazing, plants that could rapidly bounce back from being nibbled had an advantage. Over long spans of time, grasses became masters of resilience, tolerating cutting, burning, freezing, and dry spells, yet always ready to return when favourable conditions appear. In our calm narrative, we won't dwell on the drama of fire beyond acknowledging that it's another force grasses can endure. We stick to the milder happenings, mowing, grazing, the gentle interruptions of life. The important thing to remember is that each time the grass is cut back, it is not the end for the grass. It's simply a reset of its above-ground form. The roots remain, the crown remains, holding the memory of the plant and the capacity to grow again. After that mowing in our story, the days continue as before. Sunlight, water, and time do their work. The grass regains its height gradually. Its colour might deepen as it regrows with fresh new tissue. If one were to run barefoot over it a few days post-mow, it would feel a little prickly, the short trimmed blades standing upright like a subtle bristle. But give it a bit more time and softness returns as the blades lengthen and flex. If you've ever laid on a lawn a week or so after it's been cut, you might find it's a pretty comfortable natural carpet, with the grass tall enough to cushion you, but still short enough to feel neat. Now let's consider the possibility that not all of this patch of grass is strictly maintained. Perhaps at the edges of the yard or in a meadow far from human hands, some grass is allowed to grow taller, living out its full natural life cycle without being cut. Our little grass plant, had it been left completely alone, would have kept stretching upward beyond the few inches we allow in a lawn. Many lawn grasses might get to a foot or more tall if not mown, though they often bend over under their own length if they grow that high. In wilder grasses like those in fields, some can reach several feet tall, forming waving tops that dance in the wind. So let's imagine a part of our scene where the grass is not cut this time. Perhaps a section by a fence that the mower couldn't reach, or a forgotten corner of the garden, or simply the open prairie where there is no mower at all. Here our grass and its kin keep growing through the early summer days, and they reach a greater height. The slender blades rise higher and higher, and eventually the grass moves into a new phase of life, reproduction. In the plant world, this means flowering and setting seed. Grass flowers are not like the bright blossoms of a rose or a lily. They are subtle and often go unnoticed. When a grass flowers, it often simply extends a taller stem called a culm that rises above the leaves. At the top of this stem, a delicate structure forms. This is the seed head. It might look like a simple narrow plume or a tiny cluster of spikes depending on the type of grass. If you look at a lawn that hasn't been cut for a while, you might see these little seed heads sticking up, looking like miniature wheat stalks or soft bristles waving. Each of those is a collection of tiny grass flowers. They usually have no bright petals. Instead, they often have just tiny green or purple-tinged bracts and feathery parts that catch the wind. Grass is typically wind-pollinated. On a dry, breezy day, a ripe grass flower will release a dusting of pollen grains into the air, hoping some will land on other grass flowers to fertilize them. For many of us, that pollen is what makes us sneeze in spring and summer. But let's keep our perspective tiny and calm, watching the grass itself. A gentle puff of wind passes through the tall grass, and a subtle cloud of pollen lifts and drifts away like golden smoke in the sunlight. The grass has begun the process of making the next generation. Once pollinated, each little flower can develop a seed, much like the seed we started our journey with. Throughout late summer, these seeds will mature. They may be housed in little husks or glooms, sometimes papery or bristly. Eventually, when they are ready, the seeds will drop to the ground, or be carried a short distance by the wind or maybe by a passing animal. Many might get eaten by birds or mice. A few will find a resting place in soil crevices to await their chance to grow when conditions are right. Some grass seeds have tiny hooks or bristles that catch onto an animal's fur or a bird's feathers, hitching a ride to a new location. Others are light enough to be blown further afield by a stiff breeze. But however far most of them travel, plenty end up near where they started, forming the next generation in the same familiar patch of earth. In our lawn scenario, we might not get to see this natural seeding process often, because regular mowing removes those seed heads before they can fully develop. But grasses find ways. Even a mowed lawn will often produce a few seeds here and there, or those at the edges that escape the blade will drop seed that can sprout later. It's nature's redundancy to ensure the grass lineage continues. In a wild field, of course, the cycle of seeds falling and sprouting is how the grassland sustains itself year after year, alongside the perennial roots of established plants. Now our story has come nearly full circle, from seed to sprout to established plant to seed again. But our journey isn't over just yet. Grass, especially perennial grass, doesn't simply die after seeding, unlike annual plants that might. Many grasses will continue growing through the season and then prepare for a period of rest. This brings us to the concept of seasons changing and how grass responds. By late summer, after perhaps being cut multiple times or after possibly having set some seed, the grass might slow down its growth a little. The days begin to shorten, the intensity of the sun gently lessens as summer moves toward autumn. The grass has been actively growing for months, and it's sometimes at its fullest size by now, whether that's a constantly trimmed height or a wild, uncut height with seed stalks. If the weather has been very hot, some grasses, especially the cool season kinds common in cooler regions, might have gone somewhat dormant during the peak of heat. Many lawns can turn a bit brown in very hot, dry weather, conserving their energy until cooler, wetter days return. But as autumn arrives with milder temperatures and a bit more rain, often grass has a revival. Lawns often turn emerald green again in the fall after a parched summer, and growth can surge with the combination of moisture and moderate sunshine. Our grass in the story enjoys these gentler days. It may not grow as furiously as in spring, but it continues to stay healthy and green, repairing any wear and tear from the summer. Autumn might also bring a new look to the grassland or lawn. In some places, the cooler nights start to tinge plants with autumn colours, but grasses mostly remain green, or perhaps take on a slightly more golden hue if they begin to dry. Some grasses do change colour spectacularly. Ornamental grasses or native prairie grasses can turn reddish or bronze in fall, which can be beautiful as they catch late afternoon light. But imagine our patch now. Perhaps it's mostly green, maybe a little less vibrant as the season winds down, but still a soft carpet underfoot. Fallen leaves from nearby trees might drift onto it, resting atop the grass. When the wind blows, the leaves skitter along and the grass bends, then springs back upright once the leaves have passed. As nights grow cooler, the grass prepares in its own quiet way for the coming winter. For perennial grass, this means gradually slowing its growth and storing some energy in its roots. The grass might produce fewer new blades now, and focus on fortifying the ones it has. The growth points in the crown might tuck in for the cold ahead, like a child snuggling under blankets. If there's a particularly cold night, the tips of the grass might get frosted, they might freeze, and in the morning sun you'd see a dusting of white frost on the lawn. When that frost melts, the grass could become a bit limp until it warms up again, but it often endures these first touches of winter without much trouble. Finally, winter truly arrives. In some regions, that means snowfall covers the grass entirely, putting it into a deep sleep beneath a white blanket. In other regions, it might just mean cold rain and low temperatures, with the grass gradually turning brown or at least losing its vibrant green. Many grasses, particularly those in temperate climates, become mostly dormant in winter. Dormant doesn't mean dead, it's more like a hibernation. The blades may lose some colour, growth essentially stops, and the plant conserves its energy in its roots and crown, waiting for the return of warmth. Looking at a winter lawn, one might see a lot of straw-coloured grass mixed with some hardy green blades that hang on. Underneath, life is paused but ready. In our imaginary patch, let's say snow gently falls one night, covering the ground in a soft layer. The grass beneath is now insulated from the harshest cold by this very snow, ironically. Under the snow, the temperature is more stable, and the grass crowns sit quietly. Time in winter seems to slow even more, as if our story needed to get any slower. Weeks may pass with little change at all in the grass, and that's perfectly fine. Nature is resting and so is our grass. Eventually the cycle will renew. Perhaps in a few months small signs of life will reappear. The snow melts into chilly water that seeps into the soil, giving the grass a much-needed drink as it wakes. The days brighten bit by bit. A hint of green becomes visible where there was brown. New shoots start to push up from the crown. These might be fresh leaves replacing ones that died back. By the time spring has truly arrived again, our grass is ready to grow in earnest, and just like that, we've come full circle. The grass resumes its steady, patient growth as the world warms and the cycle of seasons continues. Year after year, the same grass plants can persist, not just through one cycle, but through many. As perennials, they renew themselves each spring. In a well-tended lawn, some individual grass plants may live for many years, quietly growing and regrowing. Out in wild grasslands, a hearty tuft of grass might endure for decades, surviving fires, droughts, and winters, each time sending up fresh shoots when the conditions turn favourable again. Through this annual journey, the grass has shown a quiet persistence. It endured the trim of the mower's blade, the nibble of any creature that might graze, the heat of summer sun, the dryness of late season, and the freeze of winter, and it has returned as green and alive as ever when conditions improved. This resilience is part of what makes grass such a successful form of life on our planet. It's almost always ready to bounce back. If one could watch this patch of grass in a sped-up film over many months, it would be a gentle spectacle. The grass would green and lengthen in spring, swaying softly as days pass. The sun and moon would trade places in quick succession above, light and shadow flickering over the lawn. You'd see rain clouds sweep in and depart, leaving wet glistening grass that then dries under a warm sun. You'd see the blades subtly inch higher each day, then a mower's swift pass levelling them, followed by the near immediate resilience as they rise again over the next days. Summer might bring a slight golden tinge during dry spells, and come autumn, you'd notice growth slowing, the grass hugging the earth as nights cool. Frost would creep in, turning the lawn white at dawn, and finally snow would blanket it. Under that snow, the grass would all but vanish from sight, only to emerge as the snow melts, a hint of green reappearing and spreading until the whole cycle starts anew. In such a time-lapse view, the persistence of the grass is clear. No matter the changes in weather and season, it keeps returning, quietly growing and regrowing year after year. Now, as spring sunshine filters in once more in our tale, we find our grass patch looking fresh and renewed. Perhaps it's even a little thicker than the year before, as some new seedlings might have taken root from the seeds dropped last season, or existing plants have spread out a bit more via underground stems. Some grasses, like Kentucky bluegrass, like to extend themselves by sending out thin underground runners called rhizomes, sprouting new little grass plants a short distance away. Others, like certain fescues, mostly grow in tight bunches and rely on seeding to spread. Kentucky bluegrass, for instance, is cherished for its fine, cushiony texture and deep green colour during the cooler parts of the year. It creates a velvety lawn in spring and fall. Fescues, in contrast, have slightly broader blades and a hearty constitution. They often stay green even through hot, dry spells, and their feel underfoot is a touch firmer, though still pleasant. In warmer climates, different grasses take the lead. Bermuda grass and zoysia grass, for example, thrive in the heat of summer. They creep along both above and below ground, forming a thick, resilient turf that can stand up to foot traffic and intense sun. Come winter's coolness, these warm-season grasses often take a rest and turn brown, only to green up vigorously again when warmth returns. Despite their differences, all these grasses share the same gentle growing habits, quietly extending their leaves and roots day by day, whether in a northern yard or a southern field. But with human care, those bunch grasses can be overseeded or encouraged to fill in too. For our story, it's enough to note that each year, a well-tended lawn often gets a bit thicker and healthier, given time, just as a wild meadow becomes more established and diverse with each passing year. Grass has been a quiet companion to humanity for a very long time. As we near the end of our slow journey, it's worth reflecting on how this unassuming plant has woven itself into the fabric of our lives and history, all while simply growing at its own patient pace. Long ago, before lawnmowers and manicured gardens, grasses covered vast stretches of the earth. Ancient peoples walked through tall grasses in prairies and savannas as they hunted or travelled. They noticed how animals fed on the grasses, and eventually humans too learned to use grasses to their advantage. One of the most significant ways grasses shaped human history was through agriculture. While our story tonight has been about the grass underfoot, you might be fascinated to recall that wheat, rice, corn, and barley are also members of the grass family. Those are grasses deliberately grown tall and then harvested for their seeds, the grains that have nourished civilizations. Imagine fields of golden wheat swaying under a summer sun. Those too are grasses performing the same slow growth and photosynthesis, just channeled toward producing a heavy head of grain. A rice paddy, lush and green in the monsoon, is a marsh full of grass. We don't often think of these crops as grass, but they are close cousins to the humble lawn. In a way, grass has fed us, housed us, through thatch roofs of dried grass in some cultures, and even become part of our rituals and traditions. And then there are the grasses we keep not for food, but for pleasure and utility, the lawns and fields. Picture an old estate centuries ago, at dawn, with a light mist hanging over the grounds. A caretaker might stroll out with a scythe, swinging it rhythmically with a soft swish, cutting the dew-damp grass in slow arcs. In another corner, perhaps a small flock of sheep is penned in to graze, their gentle tearing of the grass and occasional bleats the only sounds in the hush of morning. In those days, the lawn was kept short by such peaceful labours. It was a time-consuming process, but a tranquil one in its own way, done in harmony with the rising and setting of the sun. In later centuries, particularly in Europe, having a grand green lawn became a status symbol, a sign of wealth and leisure, because one needed land and labour to keep grass trimmed and neat before the advent of the lawnmower. Men with scythes or flocks of sheep would keep the grass short. Fast forward to modern times, nearly every suburban neighbourhood echoes on summer weekends with the distant buzz of mowers, maintaining that tradition of a tidy green lawn around a home. We enjoy picnics in parks on grass, children run barefoot and play on it, families relax and watch clouds while lying on it. It's the soft ground beneath many of our casual happy moments. Perhaps it's no coincidence that the colour green is so often associated with calm and renewal. The gentle green of grass is easy on the eyes and soothing to the spirit. There's a reason why a patch of green is often where we go to relax. It's as if nature designed this colour to rest our minds. Grassy fields have also become stages for some of our favourite pastimes. Consider a quiet morning on an empty sports field, be it a soccer pitch, a baseball outfield, or a cricket ground. In that calm before the players and crowds arrive, it is just a stretch of well-kept grass, sparkling with dew in the dawn light. Groundskeepers tend it carefully, cutting it to just the right height, watering it just enough, so that when the game begins, the turf can handle the running feet and the play of the day. After the game, when the cheers have quieted and everyone has gone home, the grass remains, a bit ruffled perhaps, but by the next morning it will have stood itself back up, recovered, and continue growing quietly. It's rather poetic how even in the midst of our energetic games and activities, the grass underneath stays rooted in its slow time world, unfazed and returning to stillness as soon as we pause. Beyond our yards, parks and sports fields, grasses quietly dominate huge portions of the natural world. There are thousands upon thousands of species of grass, adapted to nearly every climate. In tropical regions, some grasses grow tall and thick. Sugarcane, for example, is a type of grass that can tower over you with stalks full of sweet juice, rustling under the bright sun. In the mountains or tundra, tiny tufted grasses cling low to the ground, enduring cold and wind, turning golden in the brief summers. On distant islands, there are even grasses that have taken to the seashores, with salty breezes blowing through their blades. Along the coasts, dune grasses brave salty winds and shifting sands. Their roots form nets that trap and hold the sand, building dunes and protecting the shoreline. They stay low and tough, their blades often thick and waxy to conserve moisture, greening the edges of the sea where few other plants can survive. And then there is bamboo, a surprising member of the grass family, which in misty forests grows into giant woody stems that creak and sway, essentially becoming trees made of grass. One can walk in a bamboo grove and feel like it's a forest, yet it's technically a grassland of giants reaching for the sky at a much faster pace than our lawn, but still with the same simple ingredients of soil, water, and sunlight fueling its rise. The grass family is incredibly varied, from the very short to the astonishingly tall, but every member shares that common life cycle of sprouting, growing leaves, and often creating seeds in the wind. Picture a vast prairie under a wide blue sky, the land gently rolling and covered with tall, whispering grass. When the wind blows, it moves in waves, a green ocean, making a soft whooshing sound as millions of blades bend and rise together. In those moments, the grass seems to have its own voice, a hushed chorus that can lull any listener. In Africa, golden savannas stretch out with grasses that have felt the footsteps of elephants and antelopes, each footstep helping press seeds into soil, each grazing giving grasses a chance to regrow anew. In the American Great Plains, grasses like big bluestem and switchgrass historically grew taller than a person, with roots delving deep into the earth. Those roots made the soil rich and held it tight, so even through dry spells the prairie lived on. In the monsoon lands of Asia, rice paddies, essentially wetlands of grass, fill the air with the sound of trickling water as they nurture both the grass and the life around it. High up in alpine meadows, fine grasses create soft mats where wildflowers peek through briefly each year. Each of these scenes is different, yet the grass ties them together with its familiar form and steady growth. As we think of these diverse grasses around the globe, it reinforces just how fundamental and enduring grass is. For at least 50 million years, grasses have been part of the Earth's scenery. It's thought that around that time, long after the age of dinosaurs, grasses expanded their reach, transforming woodlands into open plains. They co-evolved with grazing animals, turning into a partnership that would shape ecosystems. To this day, many of the great wildernesses of our planet are carpeted by grass, and they remain some of the most quietly soothing vistas one can behold. There's something about an endless field of grass that invites contemplation and peace. Perhaps it's the simplicity of it, one type of plant repeated countless times, moving gently with the wind under the infinite sky. It reminds us that there can be unity and tranquility in the world. Indeed, one can find grass almost everywhere, in one form or another. It might be poking between cracks in a city sidewalk, or blanketing rolling hills in the countryside. It might be the trim green turf of a sports field, or the wild, tussocky clumps on a windswept moor. On mountaintops, tough alpine grasses hug the ground, and in deserts, hardy grasses sprout quickly after rare rains. By lakesides, reed-like grasses sway with the water's reflections. In each of these places, grass lives quietly, adapting to the local conditions and carrying on its gentle growth. No matter the location, the essence remains the same: roots reaching down, leaves reaching up, an unhurried existence flourishing quietly all around the world. All through these examples, grass remains what it has always been, a patient green presence. In its ordinariness lies a small miracle. Grass asks for so little and gives so much. It stabilizes the soil, feeds countless creatures, and provides a soft place for us to land, whether we're playing, resting, or just passing by. It's easy to overlook something so common, but when we pause to notice, as we have tonight, we can appreciate the quiet wonder that lives in each unremarkable blade. For countless generations, people have found comfort in the presence of grass. Children play on it, couples picnic and daydream on it, elders stroll across it finding solace in familiar ground. We press its blades in scrapbooks. We remember the scent of fresh-cut grass from summers past. Grass quietly ties us to memories and moments of peace. In its unassuming way, it has been a backdrop to so much of our lives, an ever-present green carpet on which the theatre of life gently unfolds. Grass has been a quiet backdrop to humanity, yet it simply grows at its own pace, indifferent to our rush. For the grass, time moves in a gentle loop. It has no need to rush. It exists contentedly in each moment, in the quiet now. There is no yesterday to regret, no tomorrow to worry over, only the gradual unfurling of today. In that sense, the world of grass is eternally peaceful, simply accepting what comes, sun or rain, night or day, and continuing its quiet growth. In our hectic world, there is something profoundly calming about tuning into nature's slow processes. Grass will grow whether or not anyone is watching, at its own subtle pace. By taking a moment to observe it, we too slow down, aligning for a while with its gentle rhythm. It quietly reminds us that life isn't a race. Growth and renewal come in their own time, and there is quiet beauty in allowing things to unfold at natural pace. So, here we are, having spent all this time effectively watching grass grow. Perhaps you found it's not so boring after all, or maybe it is boring, but in the best possible way. In our high-speed lives, there is something profoundly restful about embracing such uneventfulness. In watching this simple plant, we've immersed ourselves in an experience where each moment gently gives way to the next, with no pressure and no expectation. We witnessed each part of that journey in slow detail. We saw the lonely seed resting under the soil, waiting for its moment. We saw it swell with water and come to life. We watched as a pale root felt its way into the earth and a tiny shoot rose up, breaking into the light. We saw the first blade of grass open to the sky, drinking in the sun's rays. We saw how the grass welcomed the morning dew and how it stood through the heat of noon. We observed the gentle wave of a breeze across the green blades and the sparkling droplets left by a passing rain. We noticed how the grass endured the cut of the mower, only to grow again even greener. We followed it through the golden light of late summer and into the mellow days of autumn. We saw it rest under frost and snow, quietly alive beneath the still surface of winter, and at last we saw it reawaken with the spring coming full circle. All of that happened so quietly and gradually that if you blinked or turned away, you'd hardly know anything changed. Yet it did, and it continues even now. The grass simply lived, and in doing so, it quietly touched the world around it. Perhaps you imagine yourself lying there on that quiet lawn looking up at the vast sky. The cool night air brushes your face, and the scent of earth and grass is subtle but soothing. In that still moment, you feel connected to the gentle world of the grass, safe, unhurried, and at peace. As you settle into sleep now, you can imagine that patch of grass outside in the darkness. Maybe the moonlight is softly silvering each blade, or maybe clouds cover the sky and the grass lies in almost complete darkness. Either way, it does not need to see. It continues its slow respiration, its little life in tune with the Earth's cycle. It grows a tiny bit, even at night, and by the time morning comes and you awake, it will be just a bit taller, a bit fuller, though you wouldn't know without looking very closely. Day by day, it will keep doing this. And on some warm summer evenings, little fireflies might rise from the grass, blinking softly among the blades, tiny earthbound stars dancing in the darkness. Watching grass grow has been our gentle adventure tonight. It is the ultimate in uneventfulness, and yet, looked at another way, it's a series of small miracles happening quietly. Life emerging from a seed, reaching for light, drinking from the earth, multiplying, persevering, and renewing. There's a subtle wonder in that if you slow down enough to see it. And now we don't even need to watch it actively. We can let it continue on its own as we drift away. The grass doesn't mind if we fall asleep on it or next to it. In fact, many a lazy afternoon nap has been taken on a lawn, with the smell of grass and the chirp of distant crickets lulling the sleeper into dreams. Feel free now to let go of any last waking thoughts and sink into the same kind of quiet rest that the grass embodies. Our story has no dramatic ending, because the grass's story never truly ends. It just flows from one day into the next, a continuous present. In that spirit, we simply leave it growing, and we leave you in a place of calm and rest. May your dreams be as soft and green as a bed of grass, and your mind as peaceful as a field at dawn. Thank you for joining this meandering, sleepy exploration of how grass grows. As you drift off now, know that the grass will continue growing, quietly, patiently, under the stillness of the night. In this slow, steady world, all is truly well. If you enjoyed this calm corner of the internet, consider subscribing for more soft stories like this one, each designed to lull you gently to sleep. Good night, sleep tight, and may you rest as peacefully as the grass under the night sky.